2 billion. That's the amount Los Angeles spends each year to address the homelessness crisis. But why is the city getting more and more filled with garbage and refugee tents the more it spends? The enormous budget figure is even enough to build an entire new city. And yet, in Los Angeles, it only left behind a lasting nightmare. Residential areas have become open-air dumps. Hollywood's brightly lit boulevards are now filled with tents, rusty metal, and the stench of waste. Instead of disappearing, the homeless' garbage houses are springing up like mushrooms, becoming larger, more polluted, and more dangerous. Residents living right next to these areas describe the feeling as being trapped in hell. They fear their grandchildren will step on dangerous medical supplies, that a fire will suddenly erupt from the huts, and that disease will spread from the piles of waste. And even more than that are the unanswered questions. If $2 billion a year couldn't turn things around, where did that money go in the end? In this video, we'll step inside those garbage houses to witness Los Angeles' most bitter paradox. The more the city spends, the deeper it sinks into chaos. And worse, it's not just the homeless who are paying the price, but also the city's most exemplary residents. If you just glance at it, many people might mistake it for a piece of street art, a novel urban display. But in reality, it's the home of a homeless person, built from discarded pieces of wood and salvaged scraps from construction sites. That house, strangely enough, was quite sturdy. It is supported by a metal trolley with an additional car battery attached and connected to a small generator. From the roof, a tangle of electrical wires snaked down to the sidewalk, surrounded by piles of mechanical equipment, bicycle parts, and a few old electronic devices. A true junk castle, yet it's the final refuge of a queue veteran amidst the busiest avenue in Los Angeles. This is the paradox of Los Angeles, a city where you can build a makeshift wooden house right on the most prestigious avenue in the United States. The reasons are easy for anyone to list, from the cost of living being too high and the affordable housing crisis to other macroeconomic instabilities. But what concerned the surrounding community the most was that the city had failed to protect the people who had once contributed to the country. While the city continues to spend billions on flashy redevelopment projects, veterans and tens of thousands of others are still homeless, living under makeshift shelters cobbled together from scrap. Reporters and some residents had previously called the LAPD, hoping they would intervene to clean up this junk castle. The police arrived and spoke with the man. They said they had approached him before and offered to connect him with support services, but he refused. He said he was still young and healthy and wanted to give that help to those who needed it more. The city's sanitation team still appears regularly twice a week. To avoid demolition, he attached wheels to the house, turning it into a mobile castle that could be rolled away at any time. That image was both strange and haunting. A house that could move, drifting through a crowded avenue, trying to survive in the gap between laws and human hearts. This story quickly sparked controversy. For many people, it's just a pile of scrap that needs to be removed from the urban landscape.
I don't like it. It's not good. It's bad.
But other residents also spoke up in his defense. The man wasn't causing trouble. He even fixed bicycles, helped children, and carried the memories of a former army veteran.
Is this okay?
It's not okay that it's gotten to this point. The fact that he's here, I don't see an issue with it.
Homeless man builds a small house on Hollywood Boulevard. No matter the debate, one thing is undeniable. No one who has served in the military, and in fact, no one at all, deserves to live on the streets without a roof over their heads in the heart of a bustling city. When trash houses spring up right on Hollywood Boulevard, should we see it as just a cleanup issue, or as a sign of a deeper social crisis? And if Los Angeles has to spend billions of dollars each year while these mobile junkyards continue to appear, isn't it time for the community to ask, is it enough to just clean up the surface? But Hollywood Boulevard is just the tip of the iceberg. Because if even the most glamorous avenues are not immune to the sight of garbage houses springing up, what is happening in areas with less light and fewer tourists? The answer is waiting for you to discover in the next part. What do you usually wake up to the sound of? It could be the sound of birds singing in the garden or the hustle and bustle of the city. For many, it's the normal rhythm of urban life. But in Van Nuys, near the 405 freeway, each morning unfolds with a symphony of hell. The clashing of wood and metal, the hiss of leaking gas cylinders, the sounds of people jostling in rows of makeshift tents. This is the camp considered the largest and most notorious in the San Fernando Valley, formed in 2018 at the intersection of Oxnard and the 405 freeway. Dozens of people crammed into makeshift tents using gas cylinders for cooking, an essential item for survival that also carries the risk of fire and explosion. Many nearby residents have repeatedly reported and protested, but the city seems to have turned a blind eye, allowing the area to exist as an uncontrolled grey zone. However, by December of last year, a large fire broke out, burning down an entire row of tents and a series of adjacent structures. More than 10,000 homes and infrastructure were damaged, dozens of people died, and many families were forced to evacuate. At that time, Van Nuys had just been placed under emergency intervention.
Homelessness advocates and those staying at a large encampment in Van Nuys clashed with law enforcement early this morning as city crews prepared to clear it out. Officials using bolt cutters to get through fencing surrounding it.
A candid resident shared, "This situation is truly unacceptable." Earlier this year, Mayor Karen Bass launched the Inside Safe campaign with the 105th cleanup taking place. The authorities declared, "This place is too dangerous to continue settling, both for the homeless and the surrounding community." Excavators and trucks arrived in a long line, completely leveling the entire campsite. About 35 homeless people were put on buses and distributed to nearby shelters. Each person is only allowed to bring a maximum of 2 bags. The rest, if exceeding the limit, will be destroyed. The government claims to provide temporary housing, meals, social services, and 24/7 security. However, not everyone agrees with the cleanup campaign. About 12 protesters blocked public vehicles, arguing that the demolition was only a superficial solution. They acknowledged the extremely poor living conditions at the homeless encampment, but question, if there's no long-term solution, then cleaning up is just covering up the problem, while also eliminating the temporary shelter of the people who have made this their home.
Protesters in favor of continuing homelessness tried to stop the cleanup, prompting strong reaction from the mayor of the city.
Small protests still take place daily to oppose the project, but what few people mention is the perspective of the surrounding residents. They have had to live with garbage, squabbles, and deteriorating safety for years, and the fatigue is not easily measured. The final camp dismantling operation went smoothly, lasting continuously for 10 hours. The city had promised to turn this place into a safe parking lot, but the plan failed. All that remained in the end was an empty plot of land strewn with debris. The authorities claim they will intervene immediately if the tents reappear, but once again, there is no satisfactory answer to the question, why do they always come back, despite being cleared hundreds of times? Van Nuys, therefore, is not just a giant, demolished tent city, but also a vivid testament to Los Angeles' endless cycle. Clean up, demolish, promise, and then clean up again. And within that cycle, the homeless, local residents, and even the authorities all become trapped figures, unable to find a sustainable way out. If Van Nuys, with hundreds of cleanups, is still seeing tents reappear, what does that tell us about the nature of the homelessness crisis in Los Angeles? And with the entire city, from residents to the government, caught in the cycle of demolish and rebuild, what is the true path to lift Los Angeles out of the darkness of tent cities? Perhaps all of us are already too familiar with this area. Skid Row. A familiar name, but every time it's mentioned, it evokes a heavy feeling. Located right in the heart of Los Angeles, this 54-block area is known as America's homeless capital. With approximately 3,800 people living on sidewalks, in tents, and in broken-down RVS, Skid Row has the highest concentration of homelessness in the country, an unwanted record. Stepping into Skid Row is like entering another world. The sidewalk was packed with faded plastic tents and dilapidated cars lying haphazardly. Trash littered the streets, mixed with the smell of dampness and urine. The hygiene was so poor that there were outbreaks of diseases: tuberculosis, hepatitis, and even typhoid fever. Many people don't have toilets, so they have to use buckets and then dump the contents directly onto the street. The city added more portable toilets, distributed free food, and opened temporary shelters. But everything was overwhelmed. In that crowded stream of people, many carried mental illnesses or long-standing vices. This makes the area a place full of uncertainty. Serious brawls, theft, and conflicts occurred daily. Ironically, just a few miles away are the most glamorous streets in America: Hollywood and Beverly Hills. On one side, there's the luxurious glow of lights, and on the other, the darkness of poverty. Two worlds coexisting in the same city. Even more paradoxically, when Los Angeles needs to showcase its beauty through films, festivals, or global events, Skid Row is often temporarily cleaned up, as if simply covering it up could erase its existence. But as soon as the lights went out, everything returned to normal, or even worse. If Skid Row, just a few blocks from Los Angeles City Hall, has persisted for nearly a century, what does that reflect about how society treats those left behind? And when a wealthy city coexists with the worst slums in America, should we call it an inevitable failure, or a reminder that the American dream is at a crossroads that needs to be redefined? If Redondo Beach Boulevard was once a familiar route for daytime commuters, as night falls, it transforms into a completely different scene. On both sides of the road, dozens of dilapidated RVS and broken-down trucks were parked close together, turning the sidewalks into makeshift shelters. These aren't long-distance trips, but a mobile settlement of homeless people, right in the middle of Gardena, a community in Los Angeles County. But cleaning isn't just about compulsion. The government is simultaneously implementing the Pathway Home program, launched in the summer of 2023, with the goal of getting approximately 70 to 80 people off the streets in just one day. Those who accept assistance are taken directly to temporary housing or motels contracted by the city, provided with meals and connected to social services. This is part of a larger strategy to reduce the reappearance of RV encampments on the streets. Of course, the reaction is not uniform. Some homeless people reacted angrily, saying, "This is our home, and now it's suddenly illegal." But the police emphasized, most of these people had been contacted multiple times before. Some people initially refused, but eventually agreed to participate in the program when they understood that there were almost no other options. The surrounding community is both relieved and concerned. Relieved that the road is now cleaner and safer. But I'm troubled by the question: if there's no long-term solution, will those RVS return? Because in reality, Los Angeles has seen many areas that, after being cleaned up, are back to square one within a few months. While waiting for a fundamental solution, some major brands are starting to participate in social programs. Tesla, for example, announced funding for a research project on mobile housing using clean energy, with the goal of providing temporary shelter while also reducing environmental pollution from RV parks. This may only be a small step, but it offers hope that technology and energy corporations can contribute to a long-term solution. Does cleaning really solve the problem, or does it just temporarily hide it? And when RVS can return, who will be brave enough to think of a solution beyond this familiar loop? Looking down from above, amidst the tightly packed buildings of Koreatown, Los Angeles, a strange sight appears. An empty lot covered in tents and RVs, arranged like a small, isolated residential area. What was surprising wasn't just the number of people living there, but the way they had designed the place. An empty courtyard turned into a tennis court, a few small plots of land used as vegetable gardens, and an area dedicated to barbecues. At first glance, it looks like a miniature utility mansion. But in reality, this is a homeless encampment that has sprung up right on South Manhattan Place between 7th and 8th Streets. Unlike the temporary camps on the sidewalks, this area is particularly problematic due to ownership issues. The land belongs to an LLC registered in Delaware, not public property. That means the city faces countless difficulties in intervening. Lengthy legal processes, from requiring landowner cooperation to labeling a property a nuisance, can take years to complete. In that void, the tent community continued to expand despite all the complaints. For the surrounding residents, life changes every day. The stench of garbage, human and animal waste, wafted through the windows. Medical supplies are scattered around, and electrical wires have been stolen from streetlights, creating a constant risk of fire and explosion. Some residents report feeling unsafe when passing through the area, sometimes being approached or threatened by people living in the camp. Despite calling 311 multiple times to report the issue, they said the response was often delayed or almost non-existent. In that chaotic picture, perhaps the small ray of hope comes from the participation of the private sector. Some large companies are starting to sponsor temporary housing initiatives. Airbnb, for example, announced a special fund to support short-term rentals for homeless families in partnership with local authorities. Despite its limitations, this participation shows that the solution cannot come solely from public budgets, but requires the joint effort of many parties. If a private property right in the heart of the city can turn into an isolated homeless village for years without anyone taking decisive action, how much control has Los Angeles truly gained over this crisis? And with the government, the community, and even the landowners all stuck, who will be responsible and determined enough to find a sustainable path forward? Let's try to imagine dropping your child off at school in the morning. The laughter of students on the playground, the bustling footsteps signaling a new day. But just by turning to the opposite side, the image immediately changed. A whole row of homeless camps stretched out, crammed with faded silver tents, piles of old belongings, and even an abandoned jacuzzi tub. In the midst of the peaceful residential area of Vermont, Los Angeles, right next to Virgil Middle School, a massive homeless encampment has sprung up, transforming the street into a bitter contrast. This camp isn't just a few temporary tents. Some people living here have small wooden shacks and draw electricity from nearby power poles for lighting or cooking. A character named Josie said she's been living here with her boyfriend for 4 months. Despite being introduced to the shelter, Josie refused. The reason is simple. She was used to life in the camp and felt safer there than in the crowded space of the temporary shelter. This is a difficult paradox to resolve when some homeless people choose to stay with their tents rather than accept official help. What particularly worries the surrounding community is the location of the camp. It's right next to the students' playground. The city already has a rule prohibiting homeless encampments within a 500-foot radius of schools and parks. But in reality, this regulation is not fully enforced by the LAPD. As a result, students who go to school every day have to walk past piles of garbage, broken bicycles, rusty metal, and even dangerous objects scattered around. Parents and teachers have repeatedly voiced their concerns, but there have been no significant changes. Residents in the neighborhood are also in a dilemma. They witnessed risks ranging from sanitation and disease to small-scale violent conflicts, but didn't know how to address them. On the one hand, they want to protect young children. On the other hand, they understand that the homeless don't have many options either. That impasse persisted, causing simmering tensions to build up. In that context, some private businesses have stepped in to help alleviate the burden. Google, for example, announced an investment in affordable housing projects in Los Angeles, with the goal of building thousands of apartments over the next decade. Although the solution is still in the future, the involvement of major corporations could bring hope that the issue goes beyond short-term cleanup measures. If a school, which should be the safest place for young children, is surrounded by tents and trash. What will Los Angeles give the next generation beside insecurity? And when even the existing regulations cannot be enforced, what is the real way out of this vicious cycle? Imagine you're driving through downtown Los Angeles on a weekday morning. Amidst bustling office buildings, warehouses, and wholesale stores, a scene suddenly appeared that was nothing short of a makeshift junkyard. On Naomi Street, between 9th and 10th Streets, dozens of smashed fruit and vegetable crates were scattered every place. Oranges, bananas, tomatoes, and rotting cabbage piled up, emitting a strong, pungent odor. Insects swarmed every place, and flies buzzed in flocks. In just a few hours, the entire street transformed into an informal vegetable and fruit salvage market. This is not an unexpected incident. According to the recorded videos, this situation occurred at least twice in the same week and continued for several weeks. Each time, city sanitation teams would rush to the scene, clear the piles of fruits and vegetables, deodorize the area, and wash the streets. But less than 24 hours later, the old scene was repeated. The cycle continued, making Naomi Street a sanitation hotspot right in the middle of the urban center. The government acknowledges this is a serious issue. A health district representative confirmed the situation has persisted for weeks, raising public health concerns. The Los Angeles mayor's office stated clearly, dumping vegetables like this is unacceptable and completely illegal. They emphasized that this is not a harmless crime, but rather an act that poses a real danger to residents and pedestrians. However, to date, the source of food waste has not been determined. There's a hypothesis that this is goods discarded from wholesale markets or warehouses, but no agency has provided specific evidence yet. While there's no clear answer yet, some major companies are starting to be called upon to participate in finding a solution. Costco, as a major food distributor, has committed to partnering with the city to pilot a food waste processing program, turning some of the spoiled fruits and vegetables into organic fertilizer instead of letting them pile up on the streets. This may be a small step, but it shows that the private sector can indeed play a significant role in addressing seemingly very basic issues. The homelessness crisis in Los Angeles is not just a story of makeshift tents or trash homes springing up in the middle of boulevards. It's a mirror reflecting deep-seated societal contradictions, spending billions of dollars to find solutions, yet the cycle of waste, cleanup, re-establishment continues. Somewhere, veterans and families who were once settled are still living in a state of displacement, while the surrounding communities are struggling to endure the insecurity and chaos right outside their doors. If even Hollywood Boulevard, Van Nuys, or Koreatown are filled with tents and trash, how much control does that show Los Angeles has over this crisis? And does cleaning up truly bring a sustainable future? Or does it only temporarily cover up a wound that is increasingly spreading? If you feel this is a story worth sharing and reflecting on, please like and share this video to spread the message. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next episodes. Each interaction you make is a way for these issues not to be covered up, but to be seen directly and discussed seriously. The content in this video is based on public information, sources, press reports, and recorded footage with the aim of reflecting social phenomena and urban crises in Los Angeles. The video is not intended to assign responsibility to any specific individual, organization, or agency. Some details are presented in summary or descriptive form, which may not necessarily reflect the entire context. Viewers are encouraged to consult additional reputable sources and official reports for a more complete and balanced perspective.